Okay, come on in and have a seat, please, and we'll get started here real shortly. Thank you for coming out. It's good to see all of you. It's good to see the little kids, too. Sam, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So we just want to welcome you to our concert tonight. We're privileged to have Sam Rotman. He is from Mesa, Arizona, right around the Phoenix area. And Sam, I just checked the weather. That's where my mom lives. It's 80 in Mesa. It's 17 here. So you play in the tundra. It's been about 7 or 8 years since Sam has been here, so maybe some of you know him, but we're just glad to have him back. And he played in Sterling last night. Tonight he's here, and tomorrow night he's at Grace Bible Church in Hutch. And we're just so glad to have him here tonight. I just want to tell you, feel free to move if you want to. Like Troy, where you're sitting, you're not going to be able to see his hands move. So I'm just saying he has fast hands and they're really coordinated. So if you want to move, you're more than welcome. And towards the end of the program, we're going to be taking a love offering. And there's no obligation, but if you want to give, and you have checks, make that out to Sam Rotman. And also, I just want to tell you that God has gifted Sam with 2 gifts. Number 1, he's got really fast fingers. And number 2, they're really coordinated. But number 3, he's also gifted him with salvation. We'll hear about that in a little bit. So let me pray, and then Sam will come up. Let's pray. Father, I just thank you for tonight. I pray that I just thank you for all who came. It's a little cold out there. And I just thank you for the visitors, too, and the children and the grandchildren who are here. What a blessing, because many of them are playing the piano now. They're starting off, and I know that encourages the parents and encourages Sam. And so I just pray that the Lord Jesus Christ will be honored tonight through the concert and also the testimony. In your son's name I pray. Amen. Come forward, Sam.
Wow, what a great group. Thank you for coming out. Oh no, I've talked to my wife a few times. She told me it was 80 degrees in Phoenix area. I thought it was 6 degrees when I woke up this morning. Well, I'm happy to be with you tonight. Let me just share something. I see there's a lot of kids. And I just share this with you, parents, grandparents. People have asked me for decades, how do I get my child to practice more? They play the piano, they play the flute, they sing in the choir. How do I get them to practice more? And this is the answer. I'm not trying to be funny. Take them to a concert. Take them to a concert. Because when you take your child to a concert, they're going to be inspired. They're going to go home and say, Mommy, I want to play my little piece like that. So anytime there's a classical music, I don't know what colleges there are here. You know, I'm sure there's colleges here in Wichita, and they have music departments, and they put on a concert, or I don't know, you may have the Wichita Symphony, I'm not sure. But I encourage you, once a year, twice a year. Actually, one concert is worth 6 months of nagging. So if you do it twice a year, you never have to nag them about it. Okay. So the program's about an hour and 15 minutes. 8:15 or so. I play classical music. It's not hymn arrangements. It's classical music. I'm going to take a few minutes and introduce each piece, as I've done at the other concerts when I was here. And I think if you know a little bit about the music, you can appreciate it more. And then after hearing a lot of music of different composers, I'm going to share my testimony. Music's not the most important thing in my life, but Jesus Christ and how I came to him 54 years ago in New York City when I was studying there. So, the first piece is by my favorite composer, Beethoven. Let me share 2 things about Beethoven. He is the only composer that every note he wrote is still being played today. Every note he wrote. There are composers, I can name some great composers, you would know them, who wrote 200 pieces and 40 are played. And they're great pieces, but 160 pieces, you'll never hear a note of those other 160 pieces, not Beethoven. He never wrote 2 seconds of average music that did not live through posterity. The other thing is that Beethoven is the only composer where musicologists, that's people who study the trend of music, the science of music, who has divided Beethoven into 3 parts: early Beethoven, middle Beethoven, and late Beethoven. And the reason is because when he was 35, he wrote music completely different than when he was 25. And when he was 45, he wrote completely different than 35. So there's this growth. So you know there's composers like Mozart. There's not early, middle, and late Mozart. There's not early, middle, and late Bach. but there's early, middle, and late Beethoven. And in early Beethoven, which I'm playing tonight, Beethoven is grabbing your throat. Very dramatic, very intense, the power of the human soul, the power of emotions to express what you can't in words. And middle Beethoven is grabbing your heart, and late Beethoven is Beethoven grabbing for God, the most profound music of his, knowing that my music has been given to me by the Almighty God, and I'm putting it down on paper for him. That's a quote by Beethoven. So this is an early piece by Beethoven. It's in 4 parts. First part is lively. Second part is slow, very beautiful. To me, the most favorite part is the second. The third is a little dance, and the fourth is very fast. So when Beethoven played this piece, he changed music forever. Nobody had imagined music, this intensity and power. The first piece, the 4 parts by Beethoven. pieces, cello pieces. He wrote for voice. But Chopin just wrote piano music. So if you're going to ever learn the piano, you better like Chopin. I've never met a pianist that didn't like Chopin. I was in Poland a few weeks ago, actually, excuse me, a couple of months ago. And every time I've been to Poland, a number of times, I always play Chopin. In fact, the main airport in Warsaw, Warsaw is the capital of Poland, is called the Chopin Warsaw International Airport. So they've named it after a classical musician of Chopin. Poland was trying to get their independence from Prussia, not Russia, but Prussia. Prussians were part of a Germanic empire. This is the 1820s and 30s. And they wanted to be independent of Prussia. And so Chopin wrote these two pieces called the Tragic and the Military Polonaise. So the tragic meaning it was sad. My people are suffering, the difficulties they're having. And the military was to encourage them. It's almost more nationalistic than military. So they were written within 24 hours of each other, these two pieces, and they were published at the same time as well. So a polonaise is a national dance of Poland. If you know what square dancing is to Americana is square dancing, well, a polonaise is like their square dancing. It's their national folk dance, and it has a unique rhythm. The rhythm is this: dun 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 dun. You'll hear that somewhat in the first, but you'll hear it more obviously in the second one. Another thing in the second one is that you'll actually hear a drum roll. I mean, not a real drum, I'm the drum roll, but it goes brrrrum, cha-cha-cha, brrrrum. So this was again to encourage the people and to rally them. Now, I told you Chopin wrote these together within 24 hours of each other, and then they were published. He sent them to the publisher to be published and distributed among the people in Poland to encourage them that he wrote these pieces, these two polonaises. Normally, when you publish a piece, it's what's called the opus numbering system. All the composers have this opus numbering system. Beethoven has them, every composer. An opus is a Latin word for work number. So if you have an opus 100 and you have an opus 40, well, then you know that opus 100 was written years after 40 because there are 60 numbers in between 40 and 100. There's 41, 42, 43, 52, 54, 60, 70. When Chopin gave this to the publisher, he wanted them to be published opus 40 number 1 and 2. He didn't give them separate numbers, like this is opus 40, this is opus 41. No. They're together, they were composed together, they're being played together, and I want them published together. So these are the two pieces, the Tragic and the Military Polonaise by Chopin. In October, I turned 75. And playing, no, not the clap, that's not it. And playing that piece is like a 2-hour workout at the gym. That's an intense piece. It was much easier when I was 55 and not 75. Well, next I'm going to play you 2 pieces by the great French composer Claude Debussy. Every time Debussy wrote a piece, there's an image he's portraying. Almost like the Impressionistic painters, he was during the same period of Impressionistic music. So there's a story to every piece. I'm going to play you 2 pieces. The first piece I considered after Clair de Lune. You know, that's a famous piece, The Light of the Moon. It's on my recording, one of the great pieces for the piano. This is one of the great pieces that he ever wrote. It's called The Sunken Cathedral. It's based on a French poem. So the poem is, you're on the coast of France and it's very foggy. You'll hear that in the beginning, very kind of mysterious. And after 30 seconds, you're going to hear 3 soft bells. The water starts moving, the bells get louder, the water moves, the bells get louder, and then out of the water comes this gigantic Gothic European cathedral. Now, if you've been to Europe, you know it took them 200 years to build a church. And I was recently working on a sermon, and there's a famous cathedral in England called Lincoln Cathedral. It's in the town of Lincoln, Lincolnshire, the district. It's spectacular. And I was told in my research and learned that it was started in 1088, and it was dedicated and finished in 1261. That's 180 years. So you'll know when this cathedral comes out of the water. You'll know. The piano will start rising off the floor. But all the bells are blasting. They're blasting. The water starts moving again, and then the whole cathedral slowly sinks back into the water. That's why it's called the Sunken Cathedral. Although Debussy, all of his titles are in French. So this is called La Cathédrale, Cathedral, Engloutie, La Cathédrale Engloutie, the engulfed. We translate it sunken. The whole thing sinks back down in the water. You hear the fog returns, gets foggy again. You hear 2 soft bells, and the piece ends. The second piece, all you need to know is that it's about a juggler. A juggler. There was a man, an American named Edward Levine, and he was advertised as the world's greatest juggler. He penned and performed in Paris, the Champs-Élysées Theater, famous theater in Paris, in 1905. Debussy went and saw him perform and was so enamored by it, he wrote a piece about it. And so it starts off with a trumpet call, pa-pa-pa-pam, pa-pa-pa-pam, announcing this man. And he comes out very sheepishly, almost kind of a doofus, you know, and he throws a pin way up in the air. And Debussy said the French audience gasped. And in fact, he writes a sour note. It sounds like a mistake in the piano. And right as the pin's going to hit the ground, he grabbed it because he was the world's greatest juggler. The piece is very humorous. It has a lot of antics in it, and there's some jazz in it, because when Mr. Levine came to Paris, he brought a jazz band from New Orleans. So he recreates this jazz, this man and his antics, very comical. Debussy wrote in his diary, and I quote, "The French audience roared with laughter at the antics of Mr. Levine, but were truly in awe of him as he is the world's greatest juggler." I think that's a great quote summing up. So these 2 pieces, very contrast, the mysterious, the cathedral, and then the juggler, General Levine, eccentrique. Thank you. I hope you can see the cathedral going up and coming down. It's a magnificent piece. Well, I'm going to play you two more pieces and share my testimony, and then a final big piece by Beethoven. So these two pieces, I call them my two gems. During COVID, I didn't have concerts for 7 months. And I had 54 concerts at the time, and they were all postponed, and I made up 49 of the 54. And so I had a lot of time, because I didn't have traveling and concerts, so I found some music that I never knew of before. And so I found these two pieces. One is called The Music Box. I only know of another pianist that plays this piece. It's an absolute gem. It's written by a Russian composer named Lyadov, and it sounds just like a music box. You know what a music box is? You know, the little tinkly little thing, you wind it up, and there's a little ballerina on the top, right? Goes around, I'll do it again, no. And what happens at the end of the music box? It unwinds. And I'm telling you, the last 40 seconds of this piece are pure magic. Pure magic. How this composer figured out how to write out with rests, eighth rest, quarter rest, 16th, dashes, notes, the expiration of this music box. I try not to breathe when I'm playing the last 40 seconds of it. The second piece is a piece by a French composer named Chabrier, not as famous as Debussy, and this is a French dance, and it's very exuberant. I like it as a contrast. The music box is very delicate, and then the French dance is very boisterous and very, overt, powerful piece. So these are the two pieces. The gem is not in their title, by the way. Those are just my things. The music box and the French dance by Lyadov, the Russian, Chabrier, the Frenchman. Well, you've heard a lot of music. I want to really commend the kids. You kids, your parents should tell you, you should tell your kids tonight, thank you for sitting so well. Really, I'm not saying that to be gracious. I'm saying it to be true. Thank you. You kids were great. You kids were great, great, great. Well, before I play the last piece by Beethoven, I'd like to share my testimony. And my testimony begins with my parents. My father was born in Eastern Europe, in Romania, in 1905. My mother was born in Eastern Europe. At that time, the country was called Czechoslovakia. She was born there in 1915. So my parents were 10 years difference in age. And they were both very religious Orthodox Jews. So the Orthodox Jews are the strictest Jews that adhere to the Jewish faith. They want to follow all the laws that God gave to the Jewish people through Moses in what we refer to as Jews as the Torah. The Torah. The Torah are the first 5 books of Moses. And all of Jewish theology and all of Jewish practice derives from the Torah. And my parents left Europe in 1940 because of one person. His name was Adolf Hitler. In 1940, my father was 35. My mother was 25. They definitely both would have been murdered. 10,000%. Everybody that didn't leave the town they were from ended up dead. If you didn't leave, you ended up, it was over. 11 months after my father left Romania, the Nazis came to his town. They came to his house. They murdered his parents right in the house and took his sister to a concentration camp and ultimately never heard from again. So like a lot of Jews, my parents had to get out of Europe, and like a lot of Jews, many of them ended up in South America. There were some countries that had heard what was happening to Jews and said that if these Jews could get to their country, they would allow them in. And one of them was a small country right on the equator called Ecuador. And from 1940 to 1950, my parents lived in the capital called Quito, Ecuador. My brother and sister were born there. In the spring of 1950, so this is years after the war, my mother was pregnant with me. My father wanted to bring his family to the United States. He filled out all this paperwork. He got permission. They came through New York City, and I was born 5 months later in October of 1950. And as you can imagine, I was raised in a very, very religious Jewish home. My grandparents died for being Jewish. My parents suffered for being Jewish, and I was instilled with all my Jewish heritage. My parents sent me to public school during the day, and then after school, I went to school in the synagogue, and it was called Hebrew school. Hebrew school. So we had a very large congregation, and we could afford a big education department called a yeshiva. A yeshiva is like a seminary developing people, Jews, to become rabbis. And I began at 8 years old to go to Hebrew school. Let me just say this. This was not a 2-week class on how to be a good Jew. If you did this, this was a track for the rest of your life. I started when I was 8 until I was 16. All those years of growing up, this had a big impact on me. And this was every day. I finished school a little before 3, and at 3 o'clock, I was in the synagogue till 6 o'clock. 5 days a week for 8 years. I learned Hebrew. I learned all about being Jewish. I learned literally scores and scores of prayers. All my friends were Jewish. All my relatives were Jewish. I would pray in the morning for a half an hour in Hebrew, and then I went to school, and something unusual happened when I was 12 years old. I realized I began to develop a very foul mouth. I could lie to my teachers, not a lot, but enough. I could lie to my parents, not a lot, but enough. I could curse very easily. I was very religious in the synagogue, and these prayers meant a lot to me, and I realized it was easy to be religious, and then an hour later I'm swearing and cursing and lying, and that was easy. It was easy for me to be religious when I had to, and it was easy for me to be irreligious when I wanted to. I was good at both. Kind of sad. Then when I was 17, I was accepted in a music school in New York City, a famous school called the Juilliard School. I was there for 5 years and got a bachelor's and a master's in piano. And there I met 3 students who called themselves born-again Christians. Well, I had no idea what that meant. I never heard that. There was not a concept about what that label meant. But there was something about these students is that I would see them individually in the school. One was having lunch in the cafeteria. Another one was taking break from practicing. And every time I saw them individually, they were always reading the Bible. I thought, the Bible, this is not a school of religion. It's a music school. These were musicians. They were highly respected. And whenever they got together, all they did was talk about Jesus. Jesus did this, and Jesus said this. And why did Jesus say this? What did he mean when he said this? What did he mean when he did this? They never mentioned church. They never mentioned the C word, Christianity. It was always Jesus, 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 Jesus. Yeshua in Hebrew. They heard I was a religious Jew, and they asked me 2 questions. They asked me if I ever read the New Testament. And I told them, nope, not a word. I was told the New Testament was not a Jewish book. It wasn't for the Jews. You would never have found one in our home. I never saw one, never read one, never touched one, zero knowledge. I had not a concept of one word that was in this book. They asked me if Jesus could be the Jewish Messiah. The Jews are waiting for the Messiah. In Hebrew, it's called Mashiach. And I said, Jesus is not the salvation for Jewish people. But I was very moral, very religious, and I didn't want to hurt my parents. Let me say this. My parents almost died for me, and they sacrificed a lot for me, and I didn't want to shame them. So I never drank alcohol. To this day, still don't know what a beer tastes like. Never been drunk. And my thinking was this. If I drink, I might get drunk, and if I get drunk, I might do something stupid and shame my parents. Not worth it. Now, some of you relate to this. I lived in New York City from 1968 to 1973. That was the height of the Vietnam War. That was the height of the group called the hippies. And the hippies was all this drugs and all this sex, and you'll find happiness. Well, where I lived in New York City, 71st Street and Broadway, that's known as Uptown Manhattan, it's not what drugs you wanted, it's how much drugs you wanted. There were drugs everywhere, on every corner of every street in New York. You wanted drugs, there's all this drugs you want. Never took it. And my thinking was, if I take a drug, I might get spooked mentally and end up doing something stupid and shame my parents. Not worth it. Never had sex before marriage. So even though I was so moral, no drinking, no drugs, no sex, my friend, I'm going to tell you, I was very, very, very immoral. Immoral. You know where? Right here. I knew that I was not on the inside the way I could appear on the outside. I could do many, many Jewish things, but it never affected me on the inside. I was very moral, I was very religious, but not changed. I was the same foul-mouthed, dirty-minded, self-centered, egotistical person at 20 years old, 18 years old, 16, 14. Nothing changed about me except I was getting older. The same problems, the same sins, the same difficulties. So I made a big decision. I said, well, if I want to know about this person, Jesus Christ, I'm going to read this book, the New Testament. Now, let me tell you something. That was a big step for a Jew. And I didn't want to talk to a rabbi or a priest or a minister. I'm going to read this book myself. Now, when I was a student at Juilliard, I used to practice for 10 hours a day. 10 hours a day. Now, let me tell you, that's not a lie or an exaggeration. I did not sit at the piano for 9 hours and 45 minutes. I sat every day at Juilliard for 10 hours a day to practice. I never left the school until I completely practiced for 10 hours. I started to read the New Testament, and my whole life came to a stop. I was absolutely shocked when I read this book. For the first time in my life since I started piano as a little boy, I completely stopped practicing. These 3 friends had given me a little pocket New Testament that just fits in your shirt pocket. And they said, well, Sam, if you read this book, start in this book called The Gospel of John. Never heard of it. So sure enough, I take the book out, I look, there it is, sure enough, The Gospel of John. So I'm going to tell you what I read. Here was a man, Jesus, who said of himself, I am the light of the world. Wow. You know, as a Jew, the first book of the Bible, called Bereshis in Hebrew, beginning, God said, let there be light. And every Jew is taught that God is light. In every synagogue, you'll see the eternal light. It's not, the light is not God, it's the reality of God. Every holiday, every Sabbath, the first thing you do is light a candle. Every Passover, the first thing you do is light a candle. The reality that God is light. And now this man says, by the way, I'm the light. Here's a man, Jesus, who said, I am the bread of life. Here's a man, Jesus, who said, nobody comes to God, my Father, except through me. If you have the Son of God, you have life. If you don't have the Son of God, you don't have life. If you don't have the Son of God, you don't have life. Jesus said, I am the vine, you are the branches. Without me, you can do nothing. No, 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 no. Without God, I can do nothing. Sam, listen to me. Without me, you can do nothing. You want to know God? You want to obey God? You want to please God? You know me. You obey me. You please me. Jesus said, you believe in God, believe also in me. The same adoration you give to the Almighty, Adonai, Elohim, El Shaddai, the same adoration you give to the Almighty, you give to me. Well, let me tell you something. Don't laugh. I was absolutely shocked. I was absolutely shocked. You know Moses to the Jews? Moses never said he was the light of the world. Abraham, the father of the Jews, he never said he was the bread of life. I said, this man's a lunatic. This man is an egomaniac. And I said, I'm going to throw away this book. I'm going to go practice. And at that moment, I said to myself, Sam, if this person Jesus is who he says he is, I'm going to repeat that again. If this person Jesus is who he says he is, you know, everybody has an opinion about Jesus. Why don't you let Jesus tell you who is Jesus? Who are you, Jesus? You want to know who I am, Sam? I'm the light of the world. And if you don't believe it, Sam, I'm still the light of the world. And if nobody believed it, I'm still the light of the world. If he is who he says he is, I may be making the biggest mistake of my life throwing this book away. I better listen to him. And then Jesus said he came for sinners. I was not a sinner. I was very moral. I was very religious. I spent my whole life looking good for God. I was on God's side. But Jesus said he came to bring forgiveness, and he said he came to change us on the inside. He called it a new heart, a new birth, a new life. A spiritual heart, spiritual birth, spiritual life. So I've played concerts in 62 different countries. You name a country, I've been there. All through Asia, all through Europe, parts of Africa, all through South America. I've been to Cuba twice. I've given 28 concerts in communist Cuba. And you know why I was invited? Because they wanted culture and classical music for the people. And I said, I'll play concerts. You'll hear a full concert. But I share for 15 minutes about my faith in Jesus Christ. And they agreed. 28 concerts with 28 testimonies, as long as I gave it in the concert among the people and not in the public outside the hall. And let me tell you what I've learned. My friend, I don't care if your skin color is blue or orange or yellow or black or white. Doesn't matter. I don't care if you are a Democrat, Republican, Independent Party, Communist Party, Socialist Party, Labor Party. I don't care what language you speak. I don't care what culture you're from, because this is the reality in the world. The reality in the world is that every person in the world, which is 8 billion, and every person in this room, we are experts at hiding things. Hiding things. You know what's the first thing man did when he disobeyed God? He hid. He hid. And God had to say, where are you? You can hide things from your husband. You can hide things from your wife. You can hide things from your parents. You can hide things from your children. You can hide things from a church. You can hide things from your boss at work. But let me tell you something, my friend. Nobody hides anything from this Jesus. And even though I was so moral and so religious, please listen to me carefully. I thought I was clever enough with my tongue and crafty enough with my mind that I thought I could hide things from people and God. And on May 21st, 1971, 54 years ago, for the first time, I prayed and acknowledged Jesus Christ. And I'm going to tell you what I said. My name is Sam Rotman. My name is Sam Rotman. And Jesus, I want you to take over my life. Very simple. I want you to tell me what to do, and I will not tell you what to do. I told him the lies I said. I told him the immoral thoughts I had, the immoral words I said, the lies I said. I didn't hide anything from Jesus. You know something? You don't need to hide anything from him because you're not going to hide anything from him. And I decided I'd make no excuses. Do you realize you can come to the person of Jesus Christ and you don't need to give him an excuse for anything you've ever done in your life? And in fact, if you give him an excuse, you're complicating it. You don't need an excuse. It was a long prayer. I finished praying. I opened up my eyes. And instantly, in a billionth of a second, immediately, I knew that Jesus Christ had completely changed me on the inside. I'm telling you, I immediately stopped cursing. I was shocked I stopped cursing. And I remember I couldn't form a curse word with my lips if I wanted to. I had a dirty, filthy mind, and immediately he cleaned it and changed it 54 years ago. I thanked him, and I thanked him, and I thanked him, and the next morning at Juilliard, I went to every practice room of every Jewish friend I knew, and I told them I've been transformed by the Messiah, and his name is Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. I've played over 3,400 concerts, and I can tell you, my friend, that all of my concerts are nothing. Nothing. You know how much nothing is? That's what 3,400 concerts are. Nothing compared to having Jesus Christ. The greatest thing I ever did in my life, the most important thing I ever did in my life was to give my life to Jesus Christ. Music's not the most important thing in my life. Jesus Christ is, because listen, my friend, only Jesus Christ can transform your heart and your life, period. Your husband can't change you. Your wife can't change you. Your parents can't change you. Your children can't change you. The church cannot change you. The government cannot change you. And guess what? You cannot change you. You know who the hardest person to live with is? Yourself. But this is the miracle in the world. The reality is everyone's good at hiding things. You realize that every news article, every article of news in the world is about one basic thing. Who is hiding what? Who is hiding what? But the miracle in the world is that Jesus Christ actually transforms a human heart. That, my friend, is mind-boggling. And he's done it to hundreds and hundreds of millions of people in 2,000 years, and I'm one of them, little me. I'm one. You know, I was Jewish. I was born Jewish. That's the only reason I was Jewish. If I was born in Egypt, I would be a Muslim, and you would too. If I was born in India, where I've done a lot of concerts, I'd be a Hindu, and you would too. Or in Thailand, a Buddhist. You realize that 99% of the world is born into a religion. Why are you a Mormon? Why are you Catholic? Why are you a Hindu? Why are you Jewish? Why are you Muslim? You were born in it. That's why you need another birth. You were born physically into a religion. Now you need a spiritual birth to know him, the Almighty. Let me tell you something just on a side. You know what you'll see in every synagogue in the world? Every synagogue, you'll always see the same symbol. It's the Ten Commandments. The law that God gave to the Jewish people through Moses and to the world. You know what's the first thing you'll see when you walk into a church? You know what I call it? Forgiveness. Forgiveness. Imagine the first thing you'll see in every synagogue is the Ten Commandments. The first thing you'll see is forgiveness. And that's a big cross up there because there's a lot of forgiveness up there because you and I need a lot of forgiveness here. And every time you see that cross, every time you see a cross on a church, someone's wearing a cross, God's telling you, I have made a way to forgive you. Why don't you come to me and be forgiven and start a whole new life that is beyond what you can imagine? Salvation is not what you will ever do for Jesus Christ. Salvation is everything that Jesus Christ has done for you. Nothing in my hands I bring, simply to Jesus Christ and his cross I cling. And I play the piano for Jesus Christ. He gave me the ears to hear the music, the fingers to play the music, the mind to learn the music, the heart to love the music. Jesus has never missed one of my concerts. You know that? 2 people have never missed my concerts, Jesus and me. I know it sounds very cute, but it's very real. And every time I give a concert in a church or a big hall in Europe or with an orchestra, he's in the front row. And every time I sit down to play, he always says the same thing to me. He says, Sam, I'm really looking forward to hearing you play for me tonight. My friend, if I could look into your eyes, every one of you, I was 3 inches from your nose, I would tell you with every fiber of my being, it is worth living for Jesus Christ. My friend, it is worth living for Jesus Christ. He's not a joke. He's not a way to curse. He's not hocus pocus magic. He's not even a nice Christmas story. He is the life and the light of life. Don't let anything become an excuse to keep you from the amazing life there is in Jesus Christ. My family, for millennium, 1,000 years, were Orthodox Jews. I had a million excuses. Your past can disappoint you. People can disappoint you. A church, they're not worth it. He's worth it. And you can say like I did, young person, senior, child, tell him your name. My name is, tell him your name. And Jesus, I want you to take over my life. And he will. And I want you to forgive me. And he will. And I want you to guide me and be with me and help me. And he will, he will, he will. And you do that, my friend, you'll experience a transformation of your soul. I'll play over 30,000 notes tonight, almost 40,000. And I can tell you that not one note will change me. Jesus Christ changed me, gave me a new life. My friend, it's worth living for him. The last piece, 5 minutes long, and we'll be done. You've all heard this piece. It's a very, very popular piece, famous piece by Beethoven. It's called the Turkish March. Beethoven wrote this piece of this famous march, and then he wrote these little variations. Each variation is a kind of a development of this march, and then you'll hear this march again. It's the march, the short 6 variations, the march, the last piece, the Turkish March by Beethoven. Thank you. Just for a minute before the pastor comes up, anybody have a question like to ask me? My life, my music, my social security number? No. Anybody have a question? Yes, in the back. Speak up. Oh, yes. That is always the first or second question. How did my family respond? I went and shared with my parents. I knew it'd be very difficult, especially for my father. My father's parents died because they were Jewish, and now the son believes in this Jesus. So my father actually, and my mother actually asked me to leave the house. He said 3 things to me. You're no longer my son. I never want to hear from you again. And as far as I'm concerned, you're dead. Now, I knew it'd be very difficult. And I did not hear from my parents for a number of years. I got married to my wife, who's a believer. We've been married 52 years. They did not come to the wedding. We have 3 children. I wanted them to enjoy the children. I was not going to say a word to aggravate them. But it was too difficult for my father. In 1995, my father was 89. Remember, he was born in 1905. He was almost 90. He became ill. I wanted to visit him in the hospital, and he refused to see me. He died 4 days later, and he did not want me at his funeral, which I respected. Now, as you heard, I live in the Phoenix area. My mother lived in Scottsdale. Now, if you know anything about Phoenix, Scottsdale is where the Jewish people reside. Most of the synagogues are in Scottsdale. In fact, there's a very famous person that you all have heard of who grew up 9 years in Scottsdale. He was there from the age of 8 to 17, and he was embedded in the Jewish community and very religious. You know what his name is? Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg grew up. His first movies were in parks in Scottsdale, Arizona, which he made when he was 13, 14, 15. Then his father got a job in Los Angeles, and the rest is history. So I reached out to my mother with the passing of my father. My mother loved classical music. I'm in classical music because of my mother. And all of her family escaped the Holocaust. My mother had a great relationship with my wife. She loved my wife, loved our 3 kids. I began to share with my mother. She went to synagogue every Sabbath, and I always asked her, what did the rabbi talk about, to bring up spiritual things. I began to read to her the New Testament, and finally, on February the 12th, 2007, this is 12 years later. My father died in 1995. This is 12 years of relationship with my mother. My mother, at the age of 91, came to faith in Jesus Christ and was transformed. I'm telling you, she was transformed. It was, I'll never forget it, February the 12th, 2007. She's gone to be with the Lord, and I spoke at her funeral. I said, Mother, you are now in the bosom of Father Abraham, which is what Jesus said in Matthew, written to Jews, of what heaven is. So I knew it'd be very, very difficult. I have a brother that I witnessed to many times. He was a nominal Jew, and he has passed away. And I have a sister who is 7 years older than me, who is an atheist. She's Jewish, though. You understand what I'm saying? Oh, I'm Jewish. Oh, boy, you better not forget it. I'm a cultural Jew. But she thinks the whole religious thing is hogwash, which is very sad. But I pray for her. I reach out to her. I share with her as I can, but it's not easy. But it was a salvation for my mother. I'm eternally, eternally thankful to Jesus Christ. Someone else, any question, live or music or anything you'd like to know? Well, let me just mention I have a table in the lobby, and I have recordings there. One is all Beethoven, my favorite recording. 5 major works by Beethoven, including the Moonlight Sonata, the Pathétique. These are monumental pieces of his. The second recording is all Debussy. It has Clair de Lune. You listen to the Debussy recording, and all the stress goes out of you. You'll be a puddle of water in the living room. It's literally droplets of sound. It's absolutely staggeringly beautiful music. The third recording is 6 different composers: Mozart, Beethoven, Schubert, Chopin, Debussy, Rachmaninoff. It's 300 years of music. It's a variety. Then there's a DVD of my whole testimony. It was produced by Jews for Jesus. It's a DVD, so you watch it on TV. It's not a CD. And so it's my whole history. You see my family, my Jewish upbringing. I play on that as well, but it's mostly talking. But it's everything you heard here. It's my testimony. Each of the recordings are $15. There's no tax. The autograph is free. But there's a book that I have on my table. About 15 years ago, I gave a concert in Seattle, Washington, and a woman came who owns a Christian publishing company. She publishes books, not the entire Bible, but books of the Bible. And she then heard my testimony, got recordings of 8 other concerts, and listened to my testimony, and put together the Gospel of John with the Christian testimony of Sam Rotman. She's probably now published over 50,000 of these, and she sends them to me at all my concerts for nothing. She pays the postage, the printing, and so I have these books, and they're free. They're free. You want to take 20 books? Take 20 books. She only asks if you take more than 2 or 3 books, have a reason why you want more books to give it to somebody to read the testimony. So I share that with you. So the books are free. It's the Gospel of John. In fact, on the cover, it has a picture of a piano with the 3 crosses on it. So she made it personalized with piano music. And then put the CDs. About 20 years ago, I gave a concert in Arizona. I said, tonight, the autograph is $15 and the CD is free. And a man came up to me afterwards, literally, and said, I'd like a CD with no autograph. I won't tell you what I said. But it's been great. Thank you for coming out. It's a cold night, and thank you. I hope it inspires the children and practicing. And I'll be at the table. Pastor, come on up. I hope it was a blessing to you tonight for me being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. I just have 2 questions, and you don't have to answer. 1, do you ever mess up? And 2, would I know if you did mess up?
Well, the last time I made a mistake was in June of 1974. Look. I play 30 to 40,000 notes at every concert. For me not to make a mistake, I'd have to be made of wires. Now, it's not so much mistakes as if this was not as good as I wanted it to be. You know what I mean? For me, just personally. But yeah, I mean, I made about a half a dozen notes, which is not many out of 30,000, but I'm saying that's why you practice a lot in that sense. And but the point is not whether you noticed it, I noticed it. So, and would you ever notice it? Probably not.
We just really liked your playing, but we loved your testimony because Jesus Christ transforms lives. He transformed Sam from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light. And if you're born again, you know that. And if you're not, you want to talk to Sam about that, you can tell that's the number 1 thing in his life is, do you know Jesus Christ? So thank you for coming out, and just really appreciate you coming. Let me pray. And let's have the men come forward at this time. We're going to take a love offering for Sam. Go and come forward, men. And appreciate you coming out tonight. Yeah. And if you are writing a check, make it out to Sam Rotman, not our church, but to Sam Rotman. And this is Sam's last song. And afterwards, he'll be in the back. He loves to talk to children. Want to get an autograph, like he said, he'd love to do that. So thanks again for coming. There you go, Sam. Okay, that concludes our concert. Thank you for coming.